Good evening. Today is Tuesday, December the 9th, not November the 9th, 2025, and I'm calling to order the City Commission work session at 6 something, can't see behind me, 6:03. We're going to convene the meeting and have the roll call, please.
Commissioner Scott Wilson. Here. Commissioner Mike Mitchell. Here. Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Here.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Present. So tonight on our agenda, we have some general business, and we will start with the local street volume report. And as you recall, we're revisiting this, correct? Ladies' night. You got to use the... I did. That might be Sean's chair.
No, let's feel like the little person. All right. Good evening, City Commission. Christina Robertson Gardner, Senior Planner, and I'm here with Kelly Hart, our new Community Development Director, and Dana Weber, Public Works Director, and Rhea Velaskowski, our Transportation Consultant with DKS. And this is a couple times we've come to you about this topic. And I think tonight we just wanted to recap everything we've done, provide you a little overview of what we learned from the local volume study that you approved last spring, and then look for direction for next steps. So next slide. So about a year ago, we came to you and went and talked about local volume standards and if that could be reviewed as part of a land use decision, either with street calming or denial of a land use application. And attached to your packet is a lot of background memos related to some legal issues regarding using as a denial. But we did look at the possibility of looking at street calming as part of a land use review. But that would really need to understand what are our existing local street volumes. And so in November, you came to us and said, can you do a study and take a look at what our existing conditions are today? What are the volumes of our local streets around the city? Next slide. So we came back to you this spring and we tried to find a representative case of different local streets throughout the city limits. We looked all around the kind of geographically, characteristic-wise. We tried to grab as many neighborhoods as possible, and we tried to make sure that kind of all of the elements of our local streets were identified in that list. So we had 20 local streets identified. DKS went out and put speed.
A vendor did it, yes.
A vendor. Speed tubes that looked at both speed and volume of average daily trips. And really tonight we're here to provide that background, and then both Dana and Kelly are going to ask direction on next steps. So I'm going to give it back to Rhea.
So I have, can you hear me?
Oh,
Yeah, just pull it closer.
yeah.
It moves.
And make it green. There you go. Thanks. I have two slides I'm going to show you that are summarizing that data that Christina just described. The first one is the daily volume. So you can see on the left in that column are the 20 roads local streets that we collected data on. And then it's a bar chart showing the daily volume that was collected from zero, showing all the way out to 1,400 vehicles per day. The blue shows locations where we collected the data on a weekday, which is primarily what we did. But there were a few locations that we collected on the weekends because of the road's proximity to a park. We felt that there would be higher volumes with people using the park and the recreational use at those locations. So you can see most of the local streets are pretty low. We did find that local streets that had the lower volumes, their characteristics were that they had shorter block lengths, and typically the ones that are about 400 vehicles per day or less And then these roads also had more driveways on them. And we also found that they had more intersections with other local streets. So they were kind of within the neighborhood where there's the short, like, grid pattern of local streets, if you can picture that. The two highest volume roadways were Frontier Parkway and Boynton Street. Those higher volumes could be attributed because those are both weekend traffic count locations and near their parks. But they also have some other things in common. They have a longer block length compared to the other local streets. And they also intersected with an arterial street, which could be a reason that people are choosing to use them because they're using that local street right to get to the higher classified road or to the arterial. I would say just in best practices in transportation planning, when we're looking at local streets, we try to aim for, and again, this is a range because it depends on the context, but like 1,000 to 2,000 cars a day is kind of where we look at our maximum for livability and safety on local streets. And I would say looking at the data that we've collected on these 20 locations, none of these streets are getting near that top threshold, and really only one street is over even 1,000 a day. I guess Boynton is coming right at it. But me looking at this, it seems like your daily volumes on your local streets are fairly low, actually. Like, this isn't jumping out as me as like a big problem as having, I mean, and again, if you live on the street, you feel every car that goes by you, but looking at the data, it looks like your local streets are pretty livable based on volume. So any questions on this slide? Okay.
I was curious as to, so the one on the list is, at least on the map I can see, is, was Tidewater picked because it's between two streets that are green and people maybe use that as a cut through?
I would say yes. I know when we were picking locations, trying to
of them
cut
is
through the ones
Shenandoah, and the other one I
that would
can't
be cut-through
read.
cut-through candidates were a priority for us
Wait a
too.
second. Okay, well, okay, just, I didn't want me to look at it. Central Point and, well, it doesn't list the other one. I should know what it is though, but, right, this one. So that's Central Point. Tidewater's right there.
Except E's on the bottom. Nothing going across.
Yeah, it's close enough.
Okay. And then the other graphic I want to show you, very similar, but this is the daily speeds. So when we put the tubes out, it does collect the daily volumes and then it collects the speeds. And I did want to clarify, I'm using the term 85th percentile speed. That is an industry standard that we apply, and that merely means, and I put the definition on the bottom right there in the blue, 85% of the vehicles are traveling at that speed or below. We don't want to use average. We really like to use 85th percentile, so only 15% of the vehicles are traveling faster than that, and that gives us kind of a nice, I don't know, description of the volumes over the day for traffic engineers.
Scott, are you shocked that 9th Street is on that list? I mean, it's, look at where it is versus Woodlawn.
Oh,
Yeah, not particularly.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, I'm not shocked. I
It's what you thought.
I thought it would be more.
So similar to the volumes, the local streets with the lowest speeds, less than 25 miles an hour, also have the shorter block length, have more driveways, and they intersect with other local streets. They're also within that shorter grid of local street pattern. We didn't find a correlation between streets with the high volumes versus streets with high speeds. The two highest volume streets, Frontier Parkway and Boynton Street, have lower speeds, as you can see. So there's no correlation there. And Frontier Parkway actually has speed bumps on it today as well. Let's see. And all of these local streets are posted at 25 miles an hour. And again, back to just our best practices in transportation planning, we do try to aim to have all roads at 25, the 85th percentile at 25 miles an hour or less. So you can see there's a few that are peaking over on speed, but nothing over 31 miles an hour as an 85th percentile. But the majority of them are 25 or less. So again, while I see a few that, that bump over that 25 mile per hour threshold or a bit, again, I don't really see any big problems where, we'd be like, oh my gosh, we need speed bumps. Oh my gosh, we need to put a diverter in or do something, physical to the roadway to control it. These are all within the realm of acceptability for livability. So any question on these?
How do you think about like Hunter or Nine, like topography play into the placement of the speed tubes? Like obviously
You mean
got an
uphill,
you got a
downhill?
Yeah.
downhill, right?
Yeah, and I will,
They're-
this is the average of both directions too.
Okay, so it does
So we
involve-
do collect them bi-directional,
Okay.
yeah, where, but I'm trying to recall, none of them were significantly different, you know what I mean, where there was like a 5 mile per hour differential between the uphill versus downhill. They
But
are.
it's not like you won't put a tube if the slope of the street is, right, you're just trying to catch trips. in
Just trying to,
speed,
yep.
Right, it's not like you're putting in a flat spot, like
No,
come down a hill, it's just you're putting it on that.
Yeah,
So
and-
there could be a slope component to some of those speeds.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, the
side.
downhill will be more, and I think the uphill will be less. But yeah, we tried to be pretty cautious of where we did locate the tubes within the segment, so we were getting, a very kind of conservative condition. How's that? We wanted to capture the highest speeds and the highest volumes as we could, so. Okay, any other questions?
Second bullet, inherently, if you think of it intuitively, doesn't totally make sense, because it seems to me there would be some correlation between those two things.
Well, the two busiest streets, right, were Frontier and Boynton. And those are not even like the top 5 or so of the highest daily speeds. I guess that's what we were trying to say, is that the top volumes and the top speeds, those two are pretty much kind of in the median of the speeds that were collected. So I guess that was the finding we were trying to show there, that the volumes and the speeds didn't typically go together.
The first one you showed was only so there's no chart that shows them overlapping?
I didn't make that, no. But when we go back, you want to look? Yeah, so Frontier and Boynton were the two that were by far the highest volumes, right? And the rest are pretty far behind. Maybe Oak Tree Terrace is behind it. And then going to this, yeah, they're kind of like a median speed. So that's all. We were just saying there's not, the highest volume speeds were not the highest.
So what speed is the 85th percentile?
What do you,
Well, you're saying it's the 85th percentile in speed, so.
oh, for each roadway?
Street, right.
On the bottom.
See the bottom,
Oh, okay.
25, 30, yeah, sorry, so
Okay.
the row on the
Bottom, okay.
bottom, and then each, bar chart comes out to show that 85th percentile for each of those roadways.
Nobody had 15.
That would be pretty slow.
Yeah, well,
That would be surprising,
sometimes they need to be slow.
yeah. Well, they're posted 25.
Well,
So-
yeah, 4th Avenue in Kenema, that you have to go slow.
Yeah,
You
which
go
is,
fast, it's, well, you hit somebody's car or you'd hit the side of the cliff.
yeah, so, yeah, some of these roads have some physical features that slow people down. I mean, Elder Road's pretty slow too.
Yeah, I don't know if I've been on Elder Road, it doesn't ring a bell.
Any other questions?
Oh, yeah, I've not been over there. Walnut Grove, yeah, I don't think I've driven on that street.
Who's going first? You, Dana?
I'll take it over.
Okay.
Okay. So I guess at this point, we're really looking for some direction. We've done the study, we've presented the study, and so now it's, is it enough information? Or do you want any sort of action to be taken based off of the information that's been provided and the input from Rhea this evening? So, some of the discussion questions that are up here, should the city require traffic calming as part of new developments, as part of a land use approval, or wait until the transportation system plan update process and do a more holistic review of some of the triggers or some of the key indicators of where speed or higher volumes exist and implement it more holistically as part of the transportation system plan. And so really we're just looking for some direction and where you guys are looking to go. Do you have anything to add? All right.
Well, I would say, from my standpoint, one of the things that we consistently hear about, and I've heard this ever since I've lived here, is that people drive too fast. Now, I don't know how that correlates with where they drive or on their neighborhood or other people's neighborhoods, but I think that having something during a land use review would go a long way to calming some of those concerns, and I'm using the word specifically deliberately of calming because we hear that all the time. The last appeal we had involved, traffic and traffic and traffic and traffic, regardless of the fact that, as we explained, that when their development was being put in, that's exactly what we heard from the adjacent neighbors, and now we're hearing it, they're there, and now we're hearing it from them, that this is a problem. So it would seem to me that we could at least point to it and say, we had a review of these items, and this is how we're going to help calm the traffic or sort of try to manage it. I don't see that as being an impediment to development. I see it as a complement to a development.
So one of the things that we were thinking about internally while preparing for this conversation is there is a level of sense to what you're talking about. When you start adding in conversations about traffic calming as a mitigation measure, there starts to be a question about, is it just as part of interior to the development, or is it also off-site mitigation leading in or out of the development, right? And when you start adding in conversations about putting in traffic calming measures to exterior of the actual land use area, as was kind of discussed in the Carrie's memo, we have to make sure that we have a direct nexus and rough proportionality. But then we also have to have that consideration of whether or not the residents in that neighborhood are going to want to see that traffic calming. And so what putting it as part of the TSP does is creating guidelines for developments as they are proposed. It takes into consideration a lot of those concerns and identifies kind of like a list of mitigation measures and how to employ it. And then utilizing the traffic impact analyses for each of the individual components of the development will then allow to figure out how to marry those two together. But incorporating it as part of the TSP means that we're looking at it as a holistic measure and truly evaluating the local street component, how it connects to arterials or collectors, where some of those key trigger points are, and then figuring out what some of the appropriate mitigation measures would be as a holistic view to it as well.
As you notice, I was very careful not to say where.
Yes.
So based on what you just said, I would say, why not do both? The TSP is going to be a little ways out. We could do something now that would complement it. So it seems to me we've got the best of both worlds. We can do it, get more offsite, but I'm talking about right now, if we did something currently, put it into what is going on within that development itself, and then add the things into the TSP for offsite. Mike?
Well, credit or blame, I started this conversation.
No, nobody's blaming. I went back and reviewed my notes from stuff you
I
had
was
said from before.
I was on the planning commission. It was a subdivision proposal we all know and love in the Park Place area.
Yes.
And it was going to, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was going to cause like 10 times the amount of traffic on a local street in the neighboring subdivision. And one of my favorite things is that we have codes so that neighbors have a reasonable expectation of what's going to happen. And 10 times the traffic all of a sudden wasn't reasonable. And we had nothing we could measure against. And John Ripplinger, was that his name? Mm-hmm. He was still our traffic consultant at the time. And I said, okay, so what about a standard for local streets? And there are very few of them, unless they've happened since 5 years ago. But as I said then, local streets are different. I mean, I live on Walnut Grove Way, which was on the top of the chart, and it's 675 cars a day. That was another case where about half of the traffic on that street is from a subdivision to the east that was built later and was approved with its own exit out onto Maple Lane Road, which never got built because they didn't build the houses that made the connection. So all that, again, that traffic ends up there. So, that's what started it at that time, before our whole land use process shifted to housing. I would have been in favor of a hard cap. And if you can't move traffic without going above X number to the neighbors, there's a trip cap or whatever. Things have changed, obviously. So yeah, I think ultimately it makes sense to do something in our TSP. And if we can do something in the shorter term, to have some sort of a number where mitigation or calming devices seems to be about all we can expect to be able to do now, the way state law is with housing development. So I'd be in favor of whatever we can do in the TSP or something in the short term where we at least analyze it. So.
That's what we hear all the time. Adam?
Thank you. I would prefer to hold off entirely for the TSP update. I would prefer that we just look at it all at the same time. And if we're asking ourselves the problem that we're trying to solve, we just saw the data, albeit from a small sample, but we just saw the data about the speeds and the traffic volumes. And every time we have housing related land use decisions come to us, the two big ones that we always hear are traffic and schools. Never mind the fact that we know that public school enrollment is actually declining, and we just saw evidence to the contrary as it relates to traffic. So not to say that those perceptions are not something that we should be addressing, which I think we will holistically at the TSP level, but if we're going to try and do something preemptively, that is before we have that broader discussion, I don't want us to start doing something in the short term and then immediately change it once we realize that we have a fuller menu of options in front of us, as well as potentially more data sets in front of us. So I would prefer to wait because this does not seem to be an emergency that's demanding our action right now. It's something that's important to our community and that we should address when we're scheduled to do that for the TSP update. But I do have a question. If we were to delay it now and just look at it holistically for the TSP update, would the information gathered as a part of this exercise be used to inform that, or would it be a clean slate?
It would absolutely be used to inform it and expand upon it.
Okay, that's good to know, because my only hold up with that was the potential of just throwing this out, which I want to make sure we aren't doing and that we didn't waste money if we decided not to move forward with that. So that clarity is appreciated. Thank you.
What's our timing on the TSP update?
Not soon enough.
We don't, we don't have an identified timeframe. So the state had identified some funding through DLCD for TSP updates. They've since reallocated that money to agencies outside of the metro area. So that's one of the things that Kelly and I will be discussing is our action plan related to TSP updates and CFEC requirements. So we'll probably go for a TGM grant, Transportation and Growth Management grant through the state.
And those grants open up in usually about May.
Sure, I can come down a little more.
We could be successful for a grant in May.
To apply for
But
it.
that's just the grant part, right? You're a year probably before you even get going.
Yeah.
And then another year at least, right? By the time you do all the data collection work, public involvement,
So we're talking at least 2.5 years.
at least.
Rocky, thoughts?
Scott?
No additional thoughts. I agree with, I don't care if we wait or not, but if we wait and make the updates all at the same time.
Scott?
Yeah, I actually agree with Adam on this one. I think that it makes sense to just, I don't see an emergency at this moment. I think it makes sense to just wait and look at doing it with the next TSP update.
I think one thing we could do operationally is, and it'd be a conversation with Dana, and just like, how do we better sign street stubs? I know that sounds thin, but there should literally be, the next, this road is going to continue through, right? This road is going to be a connection. I know it doesn't help when it actually happens, but a lot of these instances that we're running up against are, properties stubbed against significant acreage.
I moved next to a dead-end road.
Well, yeah,
We've heard that.
of a farm
Yeah.
that's bigger, right? We're starting to see bigger parcels that have been vacant for not vacant. They've been used for agricultural or farm uses for a long time. And now all of a sudden someone comes in and it's like, oh my gosh, here come 75 houses, right? But, even on the top end of 2,000 trips on a local street, like, we're not pushing that in the streets we chose, right? So there's a perception feel, right, to speed and volume when you went from a dead-end street and you're the fourth house from the dead end and you get to drive through everybody else's house to the next collector, versus now my connection comes in and oh my gosh, look at all these trips coming through. Like, I'm not sure, because I do appreciate, like, should we have internal street calming measures, right? Like, we've seen it in some places, and I've gotten, some folks are like, it's great that, you've got curb bump outs. And I've got others who are like, I hate driving around the curb bump outs. I hit them every time I turn, right? But internally, maybe it makes sense, but I think we just need to I think as part of the TSP, it would look at, like, there's the Florida model. We throw everybody onto 6-lane arterials because cul-de-sacs can't touch each other, right? Or you go to a Seattle complete grid, Portland grid, and I feel like we're a mishmash, to be honest. Like, we kind of want a grid connected system for bike and ped, but we don't want cars on it. We want to drive them to the arterial, but we can't make the arterials big enough. Like, so I think thinking about that from the comprehensive TSP of probably doing a better job. And honestly, we're down to just a couple of areas, right? You got Park Place, you got South End, I think Beaver Creek's in pretty good shape. Where you're going to see some of that bigger growth.
And there were some suggestions included in Carrie's memo and in Rhea's memo that talked about, as we move forward with the TSP, some of those more holistic changes, right? Like, do you think about reducing the width of the street? Because there is that perception of, if the street is narrower, then you have to slow down, right? And a number of other suggestions that I can't remember off the top of my head. But we do have a pretty good framework and game plan to, once we start the TSP process, these are some key concepts that we can really study and identify how is appropriate, and how using those and connecting it into the existing street system will work or not work. But being able to look at that in multiple locations and then implement a guideline as part of your responsibility and developers' responsibilities in the TIA process of, you will consider these things. We would have done the legwork to identify how it's going to work best overall within the city and create a more uniform application, rather than this one neighborhood has these types of traffic calming, and then this neighborhood has something completely different, and it's more difficult to traverse throughout the city, right? So doing it as that more holistic review, gives us a better understanding of how we as a city would want to see it tackled, rather than focusing TIA specific and then it be more of a hodgepodge.
Okay, but how do you rationalize that all the neighborhoods are not the same? So I think traffic calming needs to be right-sized for that particular area, instead of the one, again, my favorite saying, it is not one size fits all. So I want to challenge you, what can we do now?
Right. I mean, so yes, I totally understand that it's not one size fits all. By putting it as part of that holistic review, you identify that menu that the city would want to see. By doing it now, we would need to go back and take a look at what that temporary menu would look like, and how it would be applied as part of a TIA analysis. But then, as we do update the TSP, it would be potentially changing it based off of that more holistic review.
Yeah, I mean, I would feel more comfortable if I knew we were moving towards doing the TSP, like I'm throwing it out, just say July of 2026, or you're going to say this date. Right now, it's just sort of, so that's why I like to ask the question, what can we do now? I know it's not an emergency. I'm not saying it's an emergency. I don't think anybody here said anything was an emergency. You're bringing this as a concept and saying, what can we, what can we do? What is the direction we're going in? But in order to follow up on our concerns about livability of our neighborhoods and livability of our city, is there anything we can take a look at in the interim? Not saying we implement it in the interim, just saying what can we take a look at so that we are making progress, given everything else you have to do, which I understand that totally. I'm not unsensitive to that.
Okay, but I mean,
So moving it forward.
let's say we went back to the either the highest speed or the highest volume street, right? And that becomes the test case, right? Like speeds, like volumes aren't necessarily correlating to speeds here. So it seems like you would focus on speed. So, we could, if you want to do a test project around one of the higher speed streets, which, like I said, would be interesting to see uphill, downhill component of this, right? But, could we do a corridor project related to speeds on one of our higher volume local streets in terms of speed, like Woodlawn, right? Relatively flat, relative to some of the other streets. Like, I just mean, like, there's so many components that go into this. There's not just this direct correlation between speed, volume, and number of trips, right? You've probably got street design. You've probably got parking on street. You've probably got stop signs. You've probably got block length, right? Like, to me, it would be focusing on the ones where we know we have higher speeds and look at that, right? Because that's going to be, but that doesn't get to your component of, it feels like there's more trips coming by, right? That's a volume issue versus a speed. Like, to me, speed is safety on a local street, right, at 25.
Speed is safety, but number of cars is more livability, really.
Right. They're both kind of a livability.
Yeah,
They don't.
right, they are.
People do not drive 25. I wish they would.
Kids, I look out my window and I see 2 basketball hoops on Walnut Grove Way with 675 cars or whatever, because that's the only place they have to put a basketball.
And like I said, what's interesting is that some of the higher volume streets aren't the higher speed streets. Right. So, which, to me, speed is I don't know, I'm not the traffic engineer, but
I was just going to add
speed makes me nervous, right?
a little nugget of information. If this is going in a direction where it's something that we're going to put into traffic impact studies that are done for developments, we would have to focus on volumes because we know, number of houses, number of commercial, trip generation. This is the ADT. We can, do our trip distribution and we can tell you when this gets built, this is what the resulting ADTs are going to be. Yeah. We can't do that with speed. There is no way to know if we add volume, will the speeds even go up? Will they go down? There's really no forecasting science and knowing what volumes,
Well,
or
when I
what speeds are
develop
going
a
to be.
property, none of my people that buy my property are ever going to speed, so. it
Oh,
won't be
that's,
my
that's
guy.
wonderful.
They have to sign.
You should-
Never heard that.
Yeah.
I'm being
No,
completely
yeah, sorry.
facetious,
So
but because I understand where you're coming from.
Speed makes it very difficult. That speed is much more a product of the design of the roadway.
I guess what I was thinking about it is like more of, it's something that the city wants to invest in.
Yeah.
You look at speeds.
If you want to
right?
solve your existing problems, existing livability with your current residents, then I would focus on speed.
Versus if we want to come up with a standard, we're into the.
For new development.
We're into a measurable volume ITE manual
Yeah. Yep.
calculation, probably.
Yeah, we're not doing a good job on changing hearts and minds because it's discretionary. If we, close your ears, Sean, we gave people more tickets, that they knew that that was the consequence of their speeding, then I think it would start changing behaviors. And we're not,
Just- One more thing. I'm going to push
right
back.
ahead.
I'm going to push back a little bit on saying that it's not an emergency, and it's not. Until the next subdivision comes along,
Exactly.
which could be next week.
For that neighborhood.
And we wish we had a standard that we could measure against, and we don't because we decided to wait till the TSP. That's the problem I have with waiting because, we don't know when that next big subdivision might come along.
I see the same thing that you do. And it's interesting, the two former planning commissioners are looking at it from that standpoint. Because we've seen that. We've seen a lot of that, a lot of it. Okay, well, I think you've got three people, which is more of a consensus than we're going to get at this point in time. So
Okay.
keep us appraised as where you're going with the
So if I can
TSP.
summarize, like, how would you like us to, so I think part of one of the proposals was that we would incorporate this into the transportation system plan update, of which we'll be going for grant funding to try to get that incorporated. I understand that there's, two strong advocates for, we need something sooner, but like I said, I'm trying to walk a line here of what I heard was we're okay delaying. I do wonder if it's a conversation that, Dana and I can have, like, okay, we have this data, we're coming back to the commission in July, August with an update. Like maybe we talk about, could we look at a corridor, right, from a public standpoint in an interim? Or we just wait, or if you guys want me to bring this back and put it on an agenda and y'all can vote, I'm fine with that too.
I'd say let's do a check back in 4 to 5 months, see where we are on grant funding.
Okay, we can give an update on where
And
we're at.
then if it doesn't look like we're going to get a go on that, we go to Plan B, whatever that Plan B might be.
And then maybe have a larger discussion in the 1-year check-in about where we're at.
Okay.
So I appreciate Commissioner Mitchell bringing that up because that gets to the point where when that does happen, and we were to have standards like that in place, then we're going to litigation is what's going to happen. So, and just given the paradigm right now as it relates to land use and housing, I don't feel very confident about the ability for us to be able to hold up on those policies. And another reason why I would suggest that we wait is because if you think that the policy landscape for housing has moved quickly the last couple of years, you better buckle up because the governor is running for re-election and we are producing less homes now than when she took office. So there are going to be even more changes to address that deficit, and we're going to have to follow them. There was legislation this year that would have prevented cities from requiring frontage exactions for certain housing developments. It didn't move forward, thankfully, but it's probably coming back. And given that reality of where we are housing-wise, it's probably going to come back.
Well, I'm going to zip it on that because I could go all day and all night, and I don't want to bore you all because you know what my opinions are about it. I think we have to do what is right for Oregon City. And
Agreed.
that's what I'm going to stand on.
Agreed.
We have to do what's right for us. Regardless of what's happening with her reelection campaign, regardless of what's happening in the landscape, gets down to it, it's about what is meaningful and what will be helpful to our community and the livability of our community. So I think we're going to revisit it later, see what happens, move forward at that time. Going to sit back and see what happens. And if there's grant opportunities and we can move forward faster, then we will. So let's just put a pause and see what happens. But keep it in, it's on the list, just on the, over here.
No, absolutely, it's on a list, it's a
Yeah.
goal of the commission. I
Yeah.
do think that this conversation helps about, like, especially when we do the TSP update and we think about, like, how do we prioritize trips, safety, speed, connectivity of local streets versus maybe doing a better job of identifying, prioritizing neighborhood collector to arterial, right? And being more upfront about that. Are there things we can do through, street design, signage that defers, right? But I think the harder part is just focusing on kind of these UGB areas, right? Where you've got, 300 acres, 250 acres, whatever it is, adjacent to street stubs that 20 years ago were intended to connect. And now that landscape has changed a little bit, right? How do we address that? So I think it'll help, at a minimum, drive the scope of what we're trying to do and the discussions we have when we do that part.
I think some of this could be somewhat applicable to some of the infill, depending on, how many units it is, because some of that's going to have a lot to do with it. I mean, I would have to say that traffic volumes on Holmes Lane have increased since that Holmes Park development has been there. Their cars coming in and out consistently. Whereas we had 1, 2, 3 houses before.
And so how do we as a city do a better job of talking about that, right? It's like that zoning has been in place for 20 years. Like those trips were assumed. The reality is very different than on paper. Oh, look, it's R2. Oh, fine. No big deal, right? But when it happens, it is dramatic, right? So how do we do a better job of talking about that, right? And I'm not, like I said, the stubs are a no-brainer for me. I've seen other jurisdictions where it's just, it's bright red, like this road is going through, right?
Wake up.
Like I said, it doesn't help with the feeling of trip, because there are more trips. There are, it does change. And especially when you've had something that takes so long to develop. It's not like boom, boom, boom. Like, the stuff along Holcomb up in Park Place, pretty much went west to east really quick. Boom, boom, boom as they went, right? And now all the stuff to the south has been sitting there for 30 years almost as vacant land,
So I think as we move into the next phase of wait and see, but also do stuff, Dana and I will make sure to look for multiple different grant opportunities, not just the TGM, to make sure that we can sort of try to maybe divide and conquer a bit. And then we can also work together on what some of that messaging might look like. Is there different informational flyers that we can put together? Is there something in the trail news that we can start working on to do some different messaging components as well? And then we will come back.
Not only during the TSP will be street volume and connectivity, but also be street design, I would assume, would potentially come out of that, right? So I think that's where you start to get into, do we do curb bump outs in local streets all the time to try to discourage cut-through traffic and slow it down at the intersections, right? You're balancing not wanting stop signs versus trying to slow folks down, right? So I think I think all of those things are on the table as you look at, where we move forward over the next TSP update.
Okay. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Nice to see you again, Rhea. All right, let's talk about Center Street. Let's wait for Mr. Walker to get a seat.
All right, good evening, Dana Webb, Public Works Director, and tonight with me is Vance Walker, our Assistant Public Works Director. So I'm going to start with just a little overview of the Public Works Center Street property, and then I've got about 3 questions that we would be looking for feedback on.
How about yes, yes, and no.
So this map here shows, outlined in red, the 4 individual tax lots that are part of this property discussion tonight. So they're kind of on the left side, we've got 2 parking lots, and then on the kind of right side of Center Street is the majority of this working site. So our office complex, our shops area, and a warehouse. So this slide with the yellow is really just to show you this is the upper yard. This was transferred to Parks in 2022, and this is not a part of the Public Works Center Street properties. So,
Let me just stop there real quick. And I think in terms of some of the discussions I've had with Commissioner Smith and that we've had over the years about, we did all this work on the McLaughlin Promenade, down to how do we get through South Second into the Kenema neighborhood, right? What's going to happen with the Grand Ron property? Obviously, we have kind of where the 204 is on this picture, where the Armory used to be, the old street going back up to the cross at the top through Waterboard Park. So Commissioner, I think when thinking about this in terms of pedestrian access, right, making sure that we tie those in, right? It is interesting when you look at, Washington Street, 7th Street, like, does it have to be a direct connection off of Center? And even if it did, what's interesting is you drive, like, from First up the hill along Center, we've got that large retaining wall, could a staircase connection adjacent to the retaining wall happen that ties right into the green area, or I'm sorry, the yellow highlighted area of the park,
South Side.
could you come?
Yeah,
do a
right,
staircase there?
right.
Could you drive
Right.
people around this backside, right?
Right.
It's just, I think there's lots of options
Right.
when you look at a pedestrian connection to the upper yard area outside of, 1122 Center. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like there's like oh my gosh, that's the place you got to connect. I think 122 Center has probably got some of the highest elevation change in
Right.
Cliff.
Yeah.
Right? Because as you go south, that the road starts to come up. I mean, I just wanted to put it in context that we've been thinking about how do you do connectivity from Center up into the upper yard, up into Waterboard Park, right? And I think you've got actually quite a few options, with probably none of them being specifically to the lower yard piece, because I think the lower yard piece is actually kind of tough just from elevation change
Yeah.
and steepness of cliff relative to what's around it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I just wanted to, I hadn't recently looked at it from above, that's why. So that connection makes sense. I assume the missing triangle is right away from this street.
A portion of it is, yes. You can kind of see the red line.
One
Yeah,
that goes straight down to the bottom of the
yeah,
screen.
that corner, the rest of that, farther up, yeah, that section there.
That's that crazy driveway.
Yeah, but that's all ours. I mean, it releases street right away. Yeah,
I'd only want that to be pedestrian access. The one
Yeah.
thing I have concerns about in terms of access is, we've all been down John Adams at that portion, and it is very narrow and quite a bit constrained. And there's all houses along through there, and some of them are closer to the street right away than others because, the street right away is very ill-defined there. So access there is probably a secondary, a minimal access, but, that's probably the best way to get somebody who's, needs accessibility would probably be the best way, as opposed to coming up a stairway. I wouldn't want us to see us build a ramp, because that cliff is like, we shouldn't be messing with that cliff.
Right. I think a discussion of the use of the upper yard has to happen, right?
Yes,
Now that it's
absolutely.
a park.
But we're
right?
talking
I
about
think-
down below and how to get up.
Right, I think from a pedestrian connection standpoint, I'm not sure that there's like a oh my gosh, 122 Center has the best connection
Yeah.
No.
surrounding it, right? So that was the point. It wasn't like
get it, yeah.
cars are gonna go this way and vehicles, I mean, we're not there
Yeah.
yet. But I just don't see, I think there's options that probably need to be looked at that are not prevented by 122.
Right.
How drastically does, I'm looking at the ground view too here. How drastically does First Street go up after it dead ends there? I mean, I'm assuming that's the reason why it was never connected, is that it's bad. But so would that never be an access point? I mean, would that ever be a street extension that would be an entrance to the park in the future? Or would it
Not a street extension, Commissioner. As I recall, some folks that live on either side of First Street there, some of them use it as sort of, personal parking and things like that. They've kind of encroached in there a little bit just with vehicles and things.
You're saying on
And
First?
On the right-of-way area,
Yeah,
right up
right
there.
there,
Correct.
yeah.
I'm just asking if it's ever possible.
And
I
then it
mean,
gets really steep.
It's very steep.
Yeah.
So I just want to think of every possibility of what we need to look at for the future of that park, if it has anything to do with these properties. And so that's why we know that the other two streets going into that park are very difficult. So if First Street's also difficult, then we probably have issues in every entrance to the park in terms of roadways.
And maybe it's okay to think of walking.
Exactly.
Like-
What is, like where the W is in the word Washington, is that a street?
It's just
unimproved right-of-way.
Dead ends
Yeah.
too.
Unimproved right away?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, but it could be a street.
But we have all that, so that's, well, that's what I'm
On that
asking, but I
particular
don't-
portion, Commissioner Mitchell, I'm not sure the topography where you see the W of Washington there.
That's why it's never
I
been
know it's
developed.
unimproved right away, but I've never walked or checked out that
But
particular
it could
piece.
be walking paths or stairs going up or
Yeah.
whatever.
So the question,
I'll just pass this around
Sure.
real quick.
Yeah,
So there's First, there's Washington, these are 2-foot contours, you're at 220, you're
Yeah.
at 170.
It's
right?
steep.
So you can imagine that cliff line kind of continues around, does that make sense?
Yeah, the closer together those lines are, the
The
steeper.
yeah,
steeper it is,
2-foot.
yeah.
Okay,
It's
that
very
helps.
steep.
So essentially, you've got a ridge line, pretty steep ridge line that runs from the south side of South
South
First up through Washington First Street, along that edge that is the back side of 122, right? Like from a bike ped, you could probably, but from a vehicular, there's going to
Right.
be limitations,
right, but
right?
stairways or other.
And I don't think
possibly.
122 fixes your vehicle connection, because that's
No, it's
probably
not.
the steepest that
No.
cliff is going to be anywhere on that section.
And is
You
that,
see where I'm talking?
that little weird piece behind, I assume that's because of the steepness of the
Yeah.
cliff too. And that's why that little teeny piece, that little hook is still left on the 122 lot and not in the upper lot?
That's
Because
correct.
it's so drastic there.
I remember going to pick up barricades at Public Works and backing into the dock there and then trying not to hit the side of the cliff over there on the other side.
Would it not make sense to take that little piece and add it to, or, well, I guess that's part of the conversation. Are we breaking these up as lots and then cleaning that up so that piece is part of another lot rather than
I'm sorry, which piece?
the little teeny tail?
Just go up and point to it. I know what you're talking about.
So this little piece, I mean, if we break these up, then that might attach to a lot here rather than be this huge lot now. Right?
I think this was more for demonstration. Was that a lot in there? or-
These are the tax lots that
Okay.
were created as part of
Yeah,
the
if you
work
see
we did
how
in
it-
If you look
2020.
at the other, go back to
Oh,
one slide.
oh,
there's
oh,
a-
I
she's
see
got
what you
it, it's
mean.
outlined in red. See that right there?
I would have,
That would be
I'm.
part of that.
Yeah, we could go back and look. I'm guessing we probably did it based on topography.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
But I
And-
mean, if
and-
when we end up selling
It's like
these
a little
off as
tail.
separate lots, we might change that,
Right.
how that, I
Right.
don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the one thing I didn't bring with me was that I was looking at the original plat for this particular area, and I was trying to remember which way the lots adjacent to 115 Center, whether there were 2 going towards Center Street and 1 going towards First Street back, because I presume, did we vacate all of those lots, or did we
We
just?
did.
Did we keep
Well,
them as one?
I don't know who did.
Well,
Somebody
at
did.
some point in time,
Between the water board transferring it to the
Right,
city,
city.
when the water board stopped to exist, I did look at, so the one thing we went through, I went through, we tried to look for reversionary clauses.
Yeah.
We didn't, I have not found one yet. But there's a lot of ordinances and resolutions and that have happened on some of these properties. But, originally this was the water board, the Oregon City Water Board property that was then given to the city for $1. And in that language is vacation of existing lots along certain blocks. Because you could imagine, like most of Oregon City, they just drop the 50 by 100
On top.
on top of, regardless of topography, right? So there are probably existing lots of records on here that have been vacated. I was just going to pull up
One of them we just bought in my time.
the one on top.
Yeah.
There was one on the upper yard that transportation had bought years ago that we ended up reimbursing transportation department and then incorporating that into the upper yard. Yes, we did buy a piece that's kind of over by
'Cause that was for access
Washington's,
in and out to
that
get
Washington First Street
What we
area.
were talking about. Okay.
Yeah, there was no city commission, it was only the water board back in those days.
All right, so what I was going to do is just kind of briefly walk you through each of the individual properties and what's on them. So the main site is about 1.07 acres. My next slide will show you some of the constraints of the site. It's believed to be in 1914 initial construction with a variety of renovations and additions. This site as well has multiple constraints and encumbrances on it that will limit its ability to be developed. So upper left is a site view of the property. Lower left is internal to the site, kind of the back area to the fleet and shops. And then that bottom right photo is a street view and includes the office building and shop site, as well as on the left side, that lighter colored building we refer to as the Cameron Building, and is the warehouse, and that is on a separate tax lot. The buildings are touching. I mean, it visually looks like one buildings, but this is 2 tax lots.
Used to be some really scary stuff in there.
So sticking with that same site, on the left, you will see the easements that exist in this area. So there is a larger easement that was kind of the wider bottom left to top right swath is an easement that's on that upper yard property. Where I wish I had a pointer. So the kind of upper one that's closer to the 122, that line is an existing public sewer line. So the middle picture shows the utilities, and you can see the orange line is a public sewer line that goes underneath the structure, is attached to that rock bluff and goes up and supported what we believe was the previous armory building, which has been demolished. I think today we got word from our crews that they don't believe there's anyone that uses that sewer. They've gone out and they've tested it. They've checked with adjacent properties, confirmed where their sewer goes, and we believe no one uses that sewer. So we could look at vacating that sewer easement. We have looked as well as how we could serve a future park on that site. And so we could use kind of that area to the north, that vacant right-of-way would have grade. We would just need to have discussions with parks, and we've started those discussions about how we could serve a future park site with a restroom facility.
To gravity flow the sewer out,
Yes.
or bring like a water line up if we had
Yep.
to.
Yeah, so we have a water line that kind of comes in from John Adams. And then, so the The other
Is that the
easement.
blue line that goes to the armory to the lower, yeah?
Yep,
Okay.
yeah. So no water lines go through the property today. That sewer line goes through there, and then there is a variety of storm drainage on the site that could be removed that's not currently within easements. So we would be looking at one public sewer vacation for an easement, and then kind of that Y-shaped one that starts in the middle of the lot and goes to the upper yard is an overhead power utility easement that was recorded in 2020. So there are poles up in the upper yard area that connect through. I'm not sure why the easement starts in the middle of the property because the power line comes from Center Street and crosses the property. So we could look at, are there ways to get that power up to the upper yard without bisecting the usable space? So that will be a question for later. How much effort do we put in to making the land as developable and usable as possible?
I will say, just so people know, the large building that is on the park's property, where you see the existing sewer line come from, there are no facilities in that building. There's no restroom, there's no sink, so nothing on that building is hooked up to it. You can see where it used to serve the armory, as Dana mentioned. So as far as the sewer line goes, from that large building, down the rock bluff, through the yard and underneath the old operations building, you can see two offshoots for sanitary lines. Those are to drains that are hooked to sewer. That could all be abandoned because Old Public Works, where you see 122, the lateral for that building comes out right about where you see 122. So we've determined that sewer line could be abandoned and not affect any residents or any city buildings. The storm line, if you pull up OC maps, there's actually a stream layer, and it shows a stream that comes off Waterboard Park underneath that building, the large building at the park, and then connects to that sort of haphazard storm system. If any of you have been to Old Public Works in the backyard, you see our waterfall. It's very beautiful this time of year.
Yes.
That's part of that. So.
Yeah,
One
so
of those features that, have a waterfall in your backyard.
yeah,
We'll put that on the
so
brochure when we
That's
send it out.
right, that's what I mean.
so that storm
Amenity.
system that doesn't have easements has the flexibility to be rerouted with a redevelopment. That would really need to be designed based on a site plan, but could be addressed. And those pipes can move as long as they can, catch that water from the waterfall and, route it out to Center Street. So there's options. The right side shows our landslide buffer. So that part of the property has some constraints related to geological hazards.
But this is the 250-foot buffer around a known geologic hazard. So where you see it going on the right slide that says landside, where you see it going from the brown overlay to non-overlay, that's 250 feet away from the toe of an identified LiDAR area, right? So the brown is not landslide area, it's the buffer. But you do have limitations there because of that.
Right. I remember.
So we started with the most encumbered and constrained property. The next property with the structure is the Cameron Building. It's 0.13 acres, so just a little over 5,600 square feet. I believe the building encumbers basically property line to property line to property line. There's not much out there but the structure. It was initially constructed in 1939 with a variety of renovations. At this time, we're not aware of any constraints or encumbrances. And I did include kind of a street view of the structure and then also just this historic photo when Redaway Trucking was there. So when the city purchased this property, we did a phase 1 environmental. It identified an underground storage tank. I believe that's all been resolved, although the Phase 1 report that we have states that the paperwork wasn't done at DEQ at the time the report was issued, so that's one of the things that we'll look into and confirm things still look good. There are no easements and nothing else. So I've not yet gotten the title reports for these properties, so once I have those, if anything else shows up, we will include that in our information.
Rocky, do you have recollection of Redway truck lines being in there?
No.
Yeah, so originally when it was built, it had a flat roof, and I think they adjusted and kind of put that domed-looking roof on later.
I think is where they added the apartment up top. There's a small apartment on top there.
In regards to the parking lots, I'll refer to one as paved and one as gravel. So this larger one, kind of on the northern end, is our paved parking lot. It's 0.16 acres, so just under 7,000 square feet. No buildings, no easements, no constraints that we're aware of. And then the smallest property is the gravel parking lot, just under 3,500 square feet. No buildings, no constraints, no encumbrances. So that's an overview of the properties. So now this is a map of the current zoning. So you may recognize over off Tumwater, the two small blue properties are the urban renewal properties that we've recently talked about with the zoning. So these are in close proximity to those. All these 4 lots are zoned institutional. And so the brown on this map is your medium density, or R3.5, and the yellow is your single family with an R6. And so tonight we would like direction on what zoning should we move forward with as we prepare these properties for sale.
Is there a way we can pull up the original plat for this area?
You mean the one from the McLaughlin original?
If it was platted in this particular area, because like I said, I like to see what the 2 parking lots, because the map that I have at home has got so much writing around it because of all the different ordinances and stuff you were talking about, you cannot really see where the original lot lines were.
I guess while we try and bring that up, I think the biggest thing, like from a state, like looking at it, right, is R3.5 seems to make sense, right? I guess the bigger question is, what does the commission want to do here, right? Is it sell them and the market's going to do what it wants? Is it we want workforce housing where we need to get into a partnership of some type of a land trust where maybe, I gotta go find the name of the ones up by the hospital where the land trust owns them. You can buy the property. You as the property owner gain equity in the house. You sell, you gain equity in the house, the building value, but the trust maintains the land, almost like a condo type situation. So it takes that land value out, which helps keep those prices lower. Like, where do we want to go here? Do we want to be more aggressive? Do we want, R2? I think as part of this though too has been, middle housing is kind of throwing a curveball here, right? You turn this over to the commercial side, they could put one big house up or they could go up to fourplex, right? How much say do we want in that? And if we want a big say, how much do we want to talk about the housing cost that we're shooting for? Because if it's none, right, this conversation is very, very different than go find a partner with a land trust to focus on workforce housing, right? That's a whole different, I think, direction of work.
Okay, well, the one thing that staff has not mentioned, obviously, this is within the McLaughlin Conservation District.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think that we need to keep that in mind when we put together a proposal to sell the property. I know it's been discussed over the years that people would like to see that part of the neighborhood knit back together again because it's been unknitted for so many years while Public Works was there. But I think, years ago, even when Bill Jackson was here, there was always a discussion about they would eventually move out of there. It was not going to be a permanent home for them because they knew they were growing and they were going to need the space. You know, I think that keeping that in mind, we would want to, like we're doing with our urban renewal properties, we want to specify, because I'm not comfortable with leaving it just to the market. I think we need to provide some guidelines for the redevelopment of the property, particularly given the pattern of development in the neighborhood. We had talked about way back when I don't know what's the word we want to use. There's something like they were like brownstones that, you know, they're upper and lower that could fit kind of back into that hillside. And then the properties on the other side across the street, get those back to where they would be knitted back into the neighborhood. There would be lots that would be consistent with the way the development pattern's been going. But there's and it's something Gary said he forwarded to you and me, Tony, but I don't remember seeing it. Something about a moderate income revolving loan fund, but I don't know what it is, but I'm going to read it when I see it the next time. But in order to see if we can help do that. Oh, that's pretty cool. Okay, so there we are.
Sorry, so you can see on this, it's hard to see with everything on there.
Yeah, there's some lots there.
But you've got.
Are we talking about block 81 and block 80?
Second, first, right?
Yeah.
16th back in the day, so this becomes South First. Just so when you're
Right.
looking at the.
South First,
current-
South
That's great.
South First, South Second,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. We used to have a 16, 17, 18 not down. That's been changed over time.
Yeah.
As you look through the plat maps.
So there was a house on one of them. I can see block 81 there, long time ago. Am I looking at that correctly? Where it says block 81,
Well,
that would be part of the parking lot,
it would be the parking.
and there's a
lot
house on
part
one of
that-
them.
Well,
The
it's not, no, it's not.
It's not?
I mean, this is a current photo.
There was,
so-
yeah.
Yeah, this
I'm
is
sure
a,
there probably was.
There
That's what
was
I'm
a
saying.
house
There were-
there and there, yeah.
Yeah, was there a house on it
I'm
at
sure.
one time?
We'd have to go back to the same.
Okay.
ones.
Yeah.
So it looks like it's is it more than a 50 by 100 lot? Or is it a 60 by 100 lot?
Can you see, I'm not sure, 5500 is that what that, with the 60 foot right of way.
I got a quick question on that, on the land trust idea. So then is the building on the tax rolls and the land, if it's owned by a nonprofit, is not?
Probably. We'd have to look into it to see how they do. I mentioned there's probably different ways to do it, but essentially you're like creating a condo situation with a nonprofit land trust underneath.
Yeah, and depending on the type of tax exemption they get, it could be a full exemption for a period of time, but lots of times it's only partial tax exemptions. And that would be on the land, but then there's still, the assessment of each of the houses will still have a tax assessment to it.
Is it a Habitat for Humanity? I think there's lots of options depending on where the commission would like to look at going for options.
Hello's doing a project right now with Habitat for Humanity.
Reason I ask, we've kind of got two goals. Workforce housing, whatever definition of workforce you care to use,
30% of medium family.
and getting property back on the tax roll. So in my mind, and I don't know what is or how you do it, but I could see some portion of these 4 properties being sold to the market, and some portion we work with a land trust or something and try to hit a lower price point. So I'm trying to kind of hit both of those goals. And yeah, that gets really complicated because how do you lay it out? But to me, we get as many workforce type housing units, not apartments,
Right.
purchasable, I own this houses, as many as we can on there. And
On which side? On
with
the-
some,
on the-
one side or the other, or however it'll lay out. Some of them at market, and some of them with a land trust so we can hit a lower price point.
And I think one of the things Dana and I and Kelly talked about, you've essentially got for, you've got 4 tax lots, right? But really you got 3, right? Like the Cameron and the lower yard are kind of one lot.
Right.
For all intents and purposes,
I
right?
agree.
And then you have the 2 parking lots on the other side, right? Like from a developer standpoint, it would be view all these as one that gives me the flexibility to move things around, make some money over here while I subsidize it over here, right? So, do we keep all 4 tax lots as one project? Or, right, you say, I mean, the 2 parking lots are easy, right? Boom, boom, they're done. Those will go fast, right? The lower yard Cameron building it's complicated. It's got some hair on it, right? So, what are we shooting for? And do we want to look at all 4 of these as a package? Or do we want to break them up and just, and move them, right? I mean, the 2 parking lots, if they were going to be, like for workforce housing standpoint, you could sell them for cheaper, probably make the math work and let the market drive the other side where it's going to be a little tough. It's not a greenfield, just throw it in project, right? So I think just looking for a little bit of guidance, little discussion on what you're thinking there would help us then go in whichever direction you'd like us to go.
Thoughts?
Yeah, I had similar thoughts as Mike, and my initial thought was the parking lots, just let the market dictate what they are. Just put them for sale, zone them, R3.5 and see what happens, and then using the lower yard and I can't remember what the other building was called.
Cameron.
And then,
It's all lower yard.
yeah, thank you. And kind of essentially combining those and saying, okay, what can we, given the constraints, what can we reasonably put in here that meets some level of like workforce housing, given that's a little bit tougher of a spot.
And I think the only thing we did find was Cameron building was bought with transportation funds.
Right.
So there is going to be, like, the general fund needs to make the transportation fund whole.
Reimburse.
Right, on any sale or take, right? But it looks like the lower yard was part of the original transfer to the city from the water board, right? And then it looks like the 2 properties, I think they were just bought, I mean, they were very cheap. They were like $4 or $5 grand back in the day.
Yeah, I struggled to find the larger paved parking lot and what we paid and what fund paid for it, but the smaller gravel parking lot, the street fund purchased in 1989 for $3,400.
1990?
Jeez. 1989.
1989.
So, I mean, I guess the point is, like, there is a little bit of color of money thing we got to unwind here, and we got to make them whole. But it's not like we bought these properties for $500,000.
Thank you, Jacob. So we had, and can you put the hand where the lots are? Okay. So there were 2 houses facing center and one, yeah. Well, it's something.
The building there.
No, the
says-
one where you had your hand before that.
Oh, across the street.
Yeah, not that. I wasn't pointing at that.
City waterwork pipe
Yeah,
storage. So
storage,
that's the
yeah.
original
So
public
that's the lot right there where the hand is?
I believe so, yeah. I think this
Okay.
line right here
Yeah.
is the cliff.
That's the bluff,
So
yeah.
apparently there was stairs back there.
Yeah, but where the Cameron building was a house, looks like.
It says, yeah, D for dwelling, I think.
Dwelling,
Yeah.
D stands for dwelling on the old
I think right away
Sanborns.
trucking started out of a home there and
Yeah.
then built their building
Yeah.
later.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is 1925.
yeah. So that'd be the Sanborn map from 1925.
Gosh, I wonder if across the street it has always been a parking lot for the pipe fitting yard.
Yeah, it doesn't,
been a
It's
vacant
odd that
lot.
there,
still nothing there.
and there's still nothing there. Yeah.
Well, but we don't have, yeah, this is the latest one. I think there may be one more Sanborn that came after that, which is always hard to get a hold of. Again, I don't have any problem if we want to sell the 2 lots that were parking lots, bringing the neighborhood back together, but we need, because of the new requirements, we need to put in our document that they need to follow the design guidelines for the McLaughlin Conservation District. And we could do that, I believe we could do that as a property owner, as opposed to, we're not saying this
I mean,
is the land use regulations.
Any new construction in the McLaughlin Conservation
Has
Center
to do it
meet
anyway.
the design guidelines.
'Cause
Regardless of whether we own it or not,
Right.
we can't exempt them from
I've
doing it.
seen some of the, anyway, I have concerns. I
But
want it to fit in, but not, I don't want to see like 50 different houses on that lot. There's single family all up and down that.
Well, I guess the commission needs to have a discussion.
Well, could we sell them and then we could put them out for sale and talk to Habitat, see if they would build a house on it that would go to somebody that could use a home, so to speak, and that's workforce.
Well, either we're doing the market or we're negotiating with Habitat.
Well,
Habitat's not going to buy it at market rate,
well, not the lot, no.
right? So,
Talking about building.
So maybe before we have more of that discussion, maybe I can share with you my next couple of slides because
Sure.
they're going to share with you more information about kind of how we could move this forward. So the next question is, what level of effort should staff put forward preparing these sites for sale? And so these are 3 options. There are probably 25 paths to get here. We could take a very simple approach, get the title reports, perform the phase 1 and 2 environmental, and confirm a hazardous materials study, and empty the building of any, there's a minor amount of what I would call personal property. There's some tables, cabinetry type of things, and we could sell the building as is. In our discussions, Vance and I have spoke with a real estate agent to kind of get a real estate agent opinion on this site. And then we have talked with a consulting firm that's helped us on this site in the past to kind of understand what these options look like. This one could be done very quickly, right? We would leave the easements, the encumbrances in place the property on the market. Probably not going to get a lot of bites.
I wouldn't think so.
So as we continue to talk with the real estate agent and the consulting firm, the site, unless you were going to zone it in industrial, is really not usable as is. The structures are not conducive to being converted to trendy, industrial housing that we might see in other, older buildings.
I wouldn't think so.
So we could take kind of a moderate approach, the option B, maintain the buildings and mitigate some of the barriers. Try and work with some of those easements. We could do some minor demo of carports and other structures out there, but we would leave the front-facing structures that create the exterior kind of like fencing of the area. If we remove that front, like if you're looking at the site, the left side is the offices and that right side, that structure you see is actually really a carport. But if we remove that, then we open up the site for, we'd have to
Problems.
re-fence it.
Problems.
So, do some selective components. And then if we look at more like an option C of a clean slate, where we remove the structures, we remove those easements, work to try and relocate that overhead power, any of those kind of things, we would be subject to Historic Review Board approval within the McLaughlin Conservation District for the demo of the structure. It is not listed on the National Register, but it is within the district and requires HRB approval for demo.
You mean local inventory? National Register doesn't have anything to do with that. It's a local inventory. They're not
Thank
local
you.
inventory document.
I didn't
buildings.
have Christina here to.
I know. You got me. You got me. Yeah, they're not on the local inventory, that is for
So
sure.
that option C, the numbers we were hearing for the cost to demo the site is up in the $400,000 to $500,000 range with the structures and the likelihood of any thing we would find in that environmental review. So it is not a cheap endeavor for us to take on or for a developer to take on. And by the time we take on all the expenses to address all the constraints and the anticipated value, it's likely we will barely break even on this property.
and the other thing is, right, we do have underground storage tanks. so I mean, we would highly recommend going down the phase 1, phase 2, understanding any mitigation, get a no further action from DEQ. I imagine, fortunately, it's a concrete, mostly building. You probably don't have a lot of asbestos, but there's probably some asbestos abatement that has to happen. We saw that at the Armory. So it's...
So those are ballpark numbers based on very little, known information, right, from the environmental study. But
Do you have a number on option B? I didn't hear it if you did.
I don't really have a number. I think one of the things that when I look at this, I think about is, in the development world, we often hear of developers struggling to get a loan, right? Struggling to get a loan to build their site. Now they need a loan to demo the site. Is it even feasible to sell it in that kind of option A of leave the building and leave all the constraints? So I think some of that might play into your discussion about how are we selling it? If we're selling it at market rate, we might break even.
And I think it is probably something to discuss. The city commission could always request that the urban renewal district get involved. They are both a urban renewal blighted property organization and a housing organization that could alleviate some of the stress. We do have some funds set aside from the utilities into facilities. If we end up at the C option, right? Especially if we want a component of this to be workforce housing, like we're gonna have to spend money to get this thing cleaned up to a place where someone's even gonna put their name on title. Because they're not gonna put it on there without a no further action if we got underground storage tanks that haven't been addressed.
And there are currently, from the DEQ records, there's 2 open files for the site. So it hasn't been resolved yet. And that was from the previous occupant, so you still have to study the environmental impacts of what has happened since we have been the operators of it.
Are you talking about the Cameron building?
The Cameron building and the previous water board
Like I said, that
operators.
building, when I was working for the city, that was a scary building.
Yeah.
I went in there all of twice and decided I would not go back in. There was stuff in there, we didn't even know what was in there. They were doing some interesting things after the trucking company got done there. Barrels of stuff.
But the other component too, just to add on to the conversation, is if it's going to cost $500,000 to demo the site just to remove the buildings, if you're trying to make a workforce development project, having that workforce development project bear the $500,000 cost means that it is passed on to the ultimate sales price or the rental price, which will very quickly take it out of a workforce project.
Well, let me ask this question. Do we have a consensus that we would like to see it rezoned R3.5? I think the work that we're doing through urban renewal on those 2 houses are going back to 3.5. It makes sense. I think it was something close to that.
It seemed consistent.
Yeah, and I think that's what it kind of was before before it got
McLaughlin
changed.
Conservation District back in the day became medium density
You're talking about
R3-5.
The RC4.
RC4. McLaughlin
Conservation, yeah. So are you okay with 3.5?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so
Makes sense.
we might as well just do all that at one swoop because it makes a lot of sense.
My only last question was, I think one we kind of touched a little bit on, is do we move forward with the sale of the 2 vacant lots once they're rezoned, or do we look at it as a kind of a larger project? And, I think, again, our cost estimates are very high level. We've not dug into them. I was a little surprised how high some of them were. If we've got direction on the zoning, we can move forward with the zoning. We can work to get the title reports and the phase 1 and 2 environmental and the hazardous material study to better understand the constraints for the property. And we can always kind of take those pieces and start kind of moving on that path. If there's one of the ABC options that we know isn't an option, that could be helpful. the as-is one is going to be tough. I think even selling it for market rate, the as-is going to be tough.
And I just think I got to throw out there the worst case, right? Lower yard, we know we have some we got some underground storage tanks. Let's say there's significant contamination. Like residential might not be an option, right? Like the cheapest and best thing may be cap it and leave it as a park or a parking lot.
Yeah, I don't think a parking lot's a good option.
I just want to put that out there,
Yeah.
right? If we're gonna push forward on the R35 zoning, because I think we would have noticed something over but worst case, right? You can't build residential on it, right? Because it's going to cost you $1.5 million to mitigate some underground storage leak that's been happening for the last 90 years that none of us know about. I think it's a small, I just want to put it out there just so if it went south, you knew there was a risk, but I don't think it's a big one. And we'll know pretty quick. I mean, this isn't some abnormal situation that nobody's ever addressed. They're going to get in there and figure it out pretty fast once we start the environmental phase 1, phase 2.
Another option to consider, just to fill your guys' heads with more options,
Is what?
just to fill your heads with more options. When you're doing a workforce development project, especially for a site this size, it's not a large property, especially with the constraints that you have on the property. And so one option would be to keep it as a project together that would then allow a workforce development housing project to move forward, to identify, do you have the outer parcels as a market rate to offset some of their costs? And depending on what their proposal comes in at, whether or not that's a needed project scope or not, you can then choose to later sell the other parcels as a market rate parcel as well.
That's another good way to look at it. We could also put together a small request for proposals or request for qualifications, just to see if there's any interest out there on kind of some of our ideas. That, we plan to rezone it, we know we've got this, that, and the other.
Well, I think the difference between putting it on the market and finding partners are two distinct paths. Right, like we can do for sale real quick. Like finding partners, I think is going to cultivate new relationships and understandings, right? Like if that's the road we want to go, I don't think that happens quickly overnight.
No, it can't happen quickly. I see the wheels turning.
Yeah.
They're good wheels.
I think I understood what Kelly was saying.
Yeah.
And I think it makes sense.
I agree.
There could be a lot of leverage in the fact that those 2 gravel lots are going to be easy to develop that would help offset the cost on the other side of the street. So I think until we know more about what we're up against on the other side of the street, we need to keep it together as a package.
Yeah, I don't want to separate
Because
them.
that could be
Leverage.
the easy money over there that
It's
pays
the
for the
leverage.
hard money across the street.
Right.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, well, that was initially why I was thinking, if we just kind of let the market get rid of the lots, right, that could offset the cost of the lower yard, because
You're saying as a package?
well, my initial, right, was just getting the parking lots on the market and selling, because I'm not particularly interested in whether or not the city makes money on the lower yard. I don't want to lose money. I don't want to make sure what goes in is right, what goes in and fits, and I think that property is going to take a lot more work.
Right.
And so I was already assuming that we'd have to do some demolition on that property and get rid of some of the buildings to make it usable. And so the idea was, okay, if we make money on the parking lots, that'll offset potentially some of the cost on the lower yard. Whether it goes as a package or not, I'm not particularly dug in either way. But I do agree with what Mike was saying. I think that with that, the lower yard, we have to kind of see what we're up against and see, is residential really even an option? So I would almost suggest hold off selling anything until we figure out what is there. And then we can decide, okay, do we sell the lot separate? Do we keep it as a package? Like really, what is this going to ultimately look like?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Like, we could probably sell the 2 parking lots to offset the cost of the demo of the Center Street building, right? But then it makes the workforce housing component harder to do, right? You know, do we have a discussion with urban renewal, right? Or not,
I think
right?
we can always have a discussion with urban renewal.
You know, because I mean, all those play into kind of the, what's going to end up being the financing of this thing at the end of the day, right?
Is there a way that we could put out some feelers to potential organizations or people that might be partners, just to say, hey, we're thinking about doing this? I mean, is there anything that prohibits us from making some inquiry like that? Because I think it's something it would be helpful for us to know. And
I would think we can,
Yeah.
we could reach out to, you know, we've got the one, this was back 20
the
years. The one
Clackamas
up to
Land Trust.
The one up by the hospital,
Yes.
right? You've got the veterans one that just went up on Malala 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, that was Northwest Housing Alternatives.
Northwest Housing Alternate, right? I mean, so we've seen some of these other kind of nonprofits pop up, right? I think it would be going through that vetting process of, you know, trying to see who's worked with whom.
And there's others out there, I know, in the larger metro area that we've probably not worked with, but maybe other jurisdictions have, that we could check in with folks. I'd be interested in hearing about how the project is going with the city of Lake Oswego and Habitat for Humanity. It's already in the ground now. I mean, they're working on it. It's almost done.
We can also try reaching out to like Clackamas County Housing Authority and who does affordable housing development, and having them take a look at the site and identify what potential barriers would be towards workforce housing development or affordable housing, so that they can help us refine what a scope would look like to reach out.
If there's SHS funding available, I mean, like if this is a road that we want to go down, I think there's a lot of offshoots to that we probably got to look into
I think,
versus just selling it.
I think getting additional information would be helpful to all of us. I think in terms of, we don't really know what the potential is out there, because we have not really ever explored this, but I think we have the ability to, we're in the driver's seat right now on this, and so I think we have all the options
I
without
guess
precluding anything at this point.
I agree. I want to preface that and set the expectation a little bit of like, this is not a ton of housing, guys, at the end of the day. This isn't,
A ton
this
of
is
housing.
not a lot of housing. This is not a 10-acre piece, right? I mean, this is a handful of lots at the end of the day.
But it's in the, you know, in terms of walk score for,
Sure.
it's got a very, very high walk score. I mean,
Yep.
this is a very desirable neighborhood. I think that you will find, I know that we had at one time, there's a lot adjacent to here that is vacant, and he was going to build on it, and then he decided not to because he didn't know what we were going to be doing with that lot, with the public works site. That's kind of, and they're still kind of in that ballpark, but they're hanging on to it, so it's adjacent to High. There's a vacant lot just before you go up the hill.
Is there
Anything,
other thoughts?
Adam?
Comments?
I would agree, wait until we know more about what needs to be mitigated before we decide about whether to split them up. I agree with the principle of wanting to keep it workforce, but I would just remind people that it does not have to be a land trust in order to be workforce housing. And I worry about not maximizing the potential return that we would get from property taxes. And that's why I'm not so concerned about whether we break even right now, is because we're understanding that the investment we're making to make this developable now will pay off in the years to come through the property taxes that it generates. And I would prefer to maximize that, which land trusts get complicated with. So just by virtue of how we zone this and what we ask of developers when we go out for proposals, it can be more or less workforce through that.
Sure. Partners is a big broad category.
So I just would want us to keep that in mind.
And I'm not, because I've been debating this in my head, right? Like, if you, and why I brought up a land trust was, once I buy the workforce housing, you are now at the, I will sell it for the maximum I can as the owner, which will take it out of workforce housing in this economy and in this region. That's the only reason. Like, I don't know how you control, how you keep it in a workforce inventory past the first buyer.
You're talking about the rents, because the rents.
No, because we're talking about buying.
Yeah, I mean, the buying, the price.
Right, we're talking about buying, and if I buy it,
Yeah,
I'm not gonna, out of the goodness of my heart in 5 years, sell it for less than I can make for what the
Right.
market's gonna
Right.
give me.
Right.
Which
Right.
is gonna take it out of workforce housing. Like, that's the only reason we brought
No, I
it
get
up.
it.
I don't know how to manage
Yeah.
this idea of workforce housing in a capitalistic market society, because the market is gonna drive the price. Not what we want, not what we think it will be based on a square footage basis.
There is something that we might need to check with Carrie about, but if we are the ones that are selling it and doing it through like a developer and disposition agreement, we could require potentially an affordability covenant
Yeah.
placed on the properties for a period of time, which would require them to sell to another person meeting the correct income. But we need to get that vetted through
We'd have to
Carrie.
look at, yeah, it's like, at some point it goes away.
Yeah.
All right, any other comments,
Just-
thoughts, concerns?
Even if we do move forward without a land trust and we do have that, the inability to control in the future, I think there still is benefit from the fact that we have smaller footprint homes that are there. That's something that we're really missing in Oregon City, regardless of if there's a covenant or if it's a land trust that says you must sell it at a certain rate. We have a severe shortage of starter homes that have a small footprint that someone like me could buy. So that would still be a latent positive regardless.
we have basically one or two developers in Oregon City that cater to first-time home buyers.
And if I'm looking at this map right, there's several duplexes right around this, aren't there? I mean, as far as getting more units in there.
Yep.
I think there's one next to the gravel lot, I think that's a duplex.
Yeah, probably didn't start out as a duplex.
Yeah,
Probably was a
I'm not-
single-family dwelling.
We'd have to go do a little better look.
Anyway, missing
Okay.
middle housing, I guess, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, exactly,
This
yeah.
was the Public Works Show tonight. Thank you so much. Lots of good work. All right, trail news. Is there a reason why this is not is this supposed to be like this, like single sheets?
No.
Okay.
No, we
It's
just.
supposed to be
We
like
don't
a-
have the ability to prevent.
Oh, right, we don't have the ability to make
a newspaper yet.
Okay, I was thinking,
It will be a newspaper,
okay.
yes, it
That's
will
what
be
I
a
thought, because I'm
newspaper.
opening it up and I'm thinking, okay.
No, 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 no.
People are
Think
gonna
of it as, yes.
People are gonna just go,
You're-
what
it's-
is,
it's
yeah,
a- it's a
okay.
newspaper
Perfect,
spread.
that's what I thought. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. You're getting ahead of me a little bit. That was actually one of my notes to reference. Before you
Pretend
today
there's
is a demo of what staff is proposing as a possible change to trail news. The reason we're looking at this is a fewfold. One, cost for trail news continues to increase at the same time due to the publishing needs, especially like a 3-month window between when it's good for it versus when the deadline is. Makes it very difficult to include timely information. The thought process here is like, well, if we're going to be continuing to spend this much money, we should really focus on a product where we can deliver timely information versus some of the stuff that's kind of static that you see in the trail news now. One of the other issues behind that is with Parks and Rec, they since some of the funding for this comes from their budget, they kind of have a say on the deadlines, what works for them in terms of having to announce camp openings and things like that. So we're working with Parks and Rec on a solution for a rec guide that would supplement their needs, and we would no longer have to do the quarterly publication based off of that timeline, but instead we can look at a monthly thing, which also aligns with what you may remember from the community survey a couple of years ago. Trail News continues to be the most popular way for residents to get information, but they had also expressed a desire to get information monthly. So this kind of brings those two goals into a line. The design here is, I mean, as Tony said, we can't really print a newspaper in-house, so this was something done on the printer. What you would see instead, it would be 8 pages, it would be this size, but kind of like that tabloid format. You would have, you know, all the pages joined and so forth. And it'd be on a, I can't remember what they call the paper. It's like High Bright 8 or something. So it wouldn't look like, you know, printer paper, but it would still be a nice quality publication. The goal here was to try to include information from each of the departments, something that's timely, stuff that both in terms of letting residents know things that are coming up or things that departments are doing. We've expressed in the past a desire for us to sing our own praises more. This publication lets us do that again because of the ability to be more timely. It's been a bit of a labor of love putting this new format together, something to try, but it's been really exciting, and I'm really excited to bring this option to the City Commission to see what your thoughts are.
And then we would essentially we would separate out and create a different mailing for the Parks and Rec guide, right? So
yeah,
that would still come out probably 3 times a year, maybe, or twice. I think
there's discussions on the best way to move forward with that.
But you could see a spring, summer, fall, winter type publication come out that's just focused on Parks and Rec activities across the board to pull that out of the ability to do this on a monthly basis. One thing with this is that right now I think we're probably mailing to as many people outside the city as inside the city.
Actually, more outside.
It's hard for me to justify that.
With Trail News?
Yes.
Yeah, because it's 97045.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so the cheapest way to do that with the magazine is based on rural routes. So rural routes don't acknowledge city limits, right? With this type of a mailing, we would have the ability, we think, to essentially utilize what we do internally for mailings, almost like our utility bill, right? And we could start to drive down some of that cost to offset some of the increased cost and really focus on the city limits or the UGB rather than just this 97045 splattering that happens right now. I was actually shocked to see we were sending it to that many people in the county. It's hard to justify that with as tight as budgets are right now, in my opinion. Jump in if you want.
Yeah, I'm trying to bring up the numbers here. Forgive me.
And I think the other kind of component of this is on the back. You know, I think Hannah and Jared have done an amazing job with the CIC, right? We're spinning people up, spinning new organizations up. We specifically tried to identify a section in the back where we could notify all neighborhood association meetings on a monthly basis to try to begin that discussion about, is there a better way to spend the funding than postcards, right? Could we take a little bit to supplement this for their noticing on a monthly basis? And maybe they could go do A-frames or a summer event, right? Like, we're spending so much money on mailings, right? Is there a better way to do that? And I do not want to get in the CIC fight. If we all say, go, I'm not picking a side here. We're just trying to identify maybe more efficient and economical ways to do some things that we've traditionally done for a long, long time.
And I do want to point out the plan on those neighborhood association notifications in there is to include a little more information about what would be on the agenda, similar to what you see in the postcards. But however, that information wasn't available when I was putting this together simply because those things don't align yet. If we go to this model, we'll change procedures a little bit to bring those timelines into alignment. And I also do want to point out, in addition to any potential savings the commission wants to identify, there will be a considerable savings in staff time as well in coordinating those postcards. That is a substantial time investment on our community engagement specialist, and with some additional community engagement projects coming up in the future, looking at parks and so forth, this could be a really effective way of swapping some of the time to look at some of those other goals that the commission has.
Do we really have enough information for 8 pages? Because like I said, the other ones that I've given you, I think Happy Valley's, it's obviously larger than this. It's like a newspaper, but it's front, back, front, back.
Yeah.
Pages, and it comes out every month.
Yeah, I really do think that we can fill 8 pages pretty easily. There's a lot of stuff that, in speaking with some of our departments, that doesn't get out there just for lack of, again, timeliness with trail news. It doesn't necessarily lend itself well to a social media post or whatnot. I think that more often than not, I mean, will there be some months I might be scrambling? Possibly. I mean, I worked in the news industry in my first career, and there's some times where it was just like, please somebody get hurt. Please somebody do something.
This is just 2 pages, right?
Yeah.
These will be 1 page.
That's a 4-page.
That's a 4-page. Yeah. This will be a 4. I mean, that's. Yeah. I mean, I guess. I mean, if worst case was, we would do 1 page with a 1-page insert.
Yeah.
Like, if anything, it gives us more flexibility to fill with content.
Which is true.
4 or 6 pages.
Yeah, I mean, there is possibility if like it was really light, we could cut down, or we could look at, one thing you'll notice, let me get back to the mailing one, so don't let me forget that, but if you'll notice on the second to last page, we have the partner highlight for End of the Oregon Trail Interpretive Center. One issue we're kind of butting up now is, I mean, I'm trying to save costs on trail news, and I keep trying to bring the page count down, and I keep getting people trying to ask me to be in trail news, and I'm trying to back off. So one thing is, this would focus predominantly on city departments, city activities. What I would do is then reserve a space each month for a different one of our partners to be highlighted. Like in this case, I did something about EOT.
Like we had talked about, somehow related to
Yes.
funding that the city's putting into an organization would qualify you, or a partner like Clackamas County Fire District, right? Or South Fork, right? But
Yeah.
we get a lot of requests for, we're gonna do an event, can you advertise for us? Like, I don't think that's what this is meant to be.
No.
Like, there has to be a link between providing a service as a partner to the city, or we provide funding to that entity to exist, right? DMMO, right? DOCA, EOT, right? I mean, those are what I consider kind of community nonprofit partners, Clackamas Fire District, South Fork Water Board, Water Environmental Services, right? Now all of a sudden, right, I'm at 7 different articles, right? There's 7 months right there with just those partners, real quick. So I just think that we've got to kind of pull back on the free advertising for any entity that just wants to advertise.
No, I agree.
Okay, good.
So,
I just want you to know,
well,
because there'll be
Let me
blowback.
just ask a self-serving question, because a lot of times when we do something like the Heritage Holidays, it's the Ermitinger House and all the other house museums. They're doing it a collective event. And so everybody is partnering together, but it's
Right.
not like this house is doing this thing this month and that.
I would imagine if there were room, Ermitinger is owned by the city,
City,
we
right.
staff it, we were, Parks is probably helping put the event on, right?
Which is why I chose that graphic.
If the McLean House in
No,
West Lynn,
that's different. That's not
Not
us.
my problem.
That's not us. Just saying, because the Heritage Holiday was more than just Ermitinger. That's why they had the QR code and they had
Yeah.
everybody in there. It didn't have to list them, but everybody could look at it and say, oh,
True.
good.
Yeah.
It's something I can pass on to the ones that I'm involved in to say, hey, this is how it's going to work. It has to be a collective event. Can't just be you. You want to be in it, got to be a collective event. That makes sense.
initial red flags.
Real quick, one thing I also wanted to add about the,
Green flag, go, do it.
Yes, do it.
What about CIC? Do you want us to have that conversation or not?
Yes.
I think putting the stuff in here is going to make life a lot easier for all of them.
In the year that I've been going to CIC meetings, I have already lost count of how many conversations I've been party to about budget and bulk mailings and how much of the funding is being spent on
That person has
postcards.
left CIC now.
What's
I
that?
said
No, I'm just saying, no, in general,
going
right,
on.
those conversations are happening. And I think that, even if we are talking about, we send this out monthly, so
That takes care of
it takes care of the mailers. And then theoretically, even if the total CIC budget is reduced to account for this new, they would still have more tangible funds that they can actually do things with that aren't dedicated to mailers.
Right.
And so I feel really strongly this is a win-win.
Well, I agree with you, and I was a big proponent of the postcards, and I still am, until there's something better comes along to replace it. And nothing to date has come along that's better. And when people said, oh, well, let's go deliver these by hand, I said, have you walked the McLaughlin neighborhood? All of it?
Yeah.
It's a lot.
And the QR code will take you to our website that
Right.
has even more detailed information related to each neighborhood association. Like, I think,
Each association has its own QR code.
Right. But like, for instance, let's say they were going to have 2 guest speakers. You've got room in here, you could say guest speaker, blah, blah, blah.
Precisely.
I to work on it a little.
I had made a demo prior to this, but by the time it came along, this stuff was really dated. So I kind of wanted to make this as real as possible.
No, I think, again,
And the first demo had that information in there. I didn't have this
like I
yet.
said, I'm a proponent of the postcards, and my agreement was, until something better comes along, this is better. So I say, go for it.
And another thing I think you're going to like is,
Say, this is what we're telling CIC, this is what we're doing. We're not asking them, we're informing them that this is the new change.
one thing I think you're going to like is you have referenced in the past sending trail news to businesses.
In the city limits.
In the city limits, this new mailing method would actually send to businesses and residents within city limits. It's actually difficult for GIS to separate those addresses out with their system. So this new thing, keeping it in city limits, would also include businesses.
Yeah.
And it's actually sending to about 17,000 and change versus 22,000
When I have
now.
people who live out near Redland tell me that they get trail news, and I said, well, that's because you're in 97045, but I said, but that's not going to go on forever. I mean, they appreciate it, but, you know, if we have extra copies laying around somewhere.
It's online.
Yeah.
You can sign up
What
for
about,
email.
what do we do about the PO boxes? We send it, because I see trail news in the PO boxes. And those are all in, you know, not all in city people, we don't know, but they have a 97045.
I would have to check on that,
See
yeah.
what they're pulling, because we're pulling it off the tax assessor data
Yeah.
for renter and business and property owner. So I imagine, like, if I lived at my address and I had a PO box instead of 123 Main Street, if it said PO Box 123, we're probably sending it to the PO box.
Yeah.
I just don't know. You got to be tied to something
Yeah.
to even know we have a PO box to send it to.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Some people do not, I mean, believe it or not, there are people in Oregon City do not get mail at their home. They have
No,
no
I know.
mail receptacle because they use a PO
Or there are
box.
people who live in the county who have PO boxes,
Yeah.
right?
I had a,
The number of those that we'd be missing though is minuscule.
minuscule
Once
compared
we
to the
once we
entire,
pull
yes.
the property owner,
Correct.
renter in business, like,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a huge percentage.
Good. As I always tell business owners, they say, well, how do you know about it? I said, well, I get trail news. Do you not get trail? No, you don't get trail news. That's right.
well, now they'll get a copy.
Yeah. Okay. What do you think, guys?
Great
Move forward?
work.
All right.
Yeah.
Onward and
Fantastic.
upward.
My goal then is probably to start with the first issue in February with the holidays right now, probably not the time to jump into something new. So if that's the direction, giddy
Sounds
up.
good.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
We
Whenever
just,
you
we
get
just
it
booked
launched.
trail news, right? We just
I'm sorry?
We just
did trail.
We just did.
Yes.
We just kind of got it to the printer and all that stuff.
Yeah, it just hit mailboxes mid last month, so it's still good for a little while.
Thank you, this is awesome.
terrific.
This is great.
I take them when I see them at the post office and they're laying on the counter, I just grab them and bring them back to City Hall and put them in the slot because some people toss them. How could they? But they do. All right. Future agenda items.
Great. So our next meeting is the 17th. We'll have, before the regular meeting at 7 o'clock, at 6 o'clock, we'll have an urban renewal meeting. Discussion about the status of the two homes in terms of significant improvements and investment we need to make in those homes to make them probably marketable in terms of electrical, roof, other things.
But they're livable, though. They're rented, right?
They're not in good condition.
Okay.
So then we're into January. We have our first meeting will be more ceremonial in nature. So the first work session will be January 13th. System development charges. You see this is one item, but we're probably going to have two separate discussions. One is the tiering, and then the other is really kind of the deferral of SDCs. Those are, while they all relate to SDCs, the discussions are very different topics in terms of implications. And then the city flag and seal. The 21st will hopefully bring back the promenade. We were looking at trying to maximize the amount of parking on High Street, the stubs, what those options were, discussion with fire about access through the promenade, so we'll bring that back. There's really just a handful of property, not even a handful, one couple of properties left to deal with. In February, we get into stormwater monthly fee exemption. So this is when, if you're not putting stormwater directly into our system, but you're rather putting it into an adjacent creek, should you be 100% exempt from stormwater? So that discussion, and then bringing back the mural and Arts Commission code and letter of interest for Highway 43. So that gets us through February of 2026.
Where are we on the request that Mike made? Where would that go?
Which request?
That was the resolution regarding ICE enforcement.
We're planning to bring that. We're reviewing it right now, so
Okay.
hopefully it'll go out with the agenda tomorrow for the
17th?
of December for consideration on the regular. We're not bringing that as a work session.
No,
We're just going to
going
put it
straight,
on
right, okay.
the regular meeting. I know that I've had some folks or some commissioners talking about and responding to the DOCA letter. Is that a work session that you all want about looking at increased?
Yes.
Increasing penalties related to tree removal in certain parts of the city? Is that something you all want to
Yes.
see?
Yeah, I'd like to look at it,
Okay.
for sure.
And we had trees that varied from, so the diameter from 49 inches to 35 inches. So, I mean, we're not talking any wimpy tree.
Okay. So that's something we'll add and bring back as a
I know. I see
as
it's
a
down there
work.
today.
I mean,
They're hideous.
I know. Okay.
Question.
Yes, sir.
When I was going back and watching the meeting where I was away, I do remember that Commissioner Mitchell also brought up what Tara had complained about in regards to the Main Street events, and so I'm wondering if that's coming.
I think we were waiting to get something back from Public Works, is what, about the events, events being.
Notification of street closures.
it should be on here for something that we, when we were, I think, it's on our internal working sheet. We added it. I think it was more of just trying to slide it into a date, because I think, I think everyone's aware, right? This could be a very concise discussion about noticing, or this could be a very, very large discussion about all of events. And so I think we're trying to kind of gauge a little bit, like, what are we focusing on here?
One of the
If you all want to keep talking, I can go ahead and look.
One
I
of the
think we were
concerns
looking at March to bring
I
that
think that
back.
her concern was valid, but not every event is going to go through the Downtown Association. But I do think the issue that she was focusing in on with regard to it's like when we have a contractor come in and they're going to be doing work. We ask them to put a notice out to say, hey, this is going to be happening, here's who you contact, all of that. And that's has not happened. That would make a lot of sense.
I guess I will just say, right, we have partners.
DOCA gets no approval of whatever the events were we approve.
Oh, I know, but we rely on our partners to help us. It's a
Manage.
two-way street
Yes, I
in
agree.
terms of communication,
I
right?
agree.
Yeah, they need to be.
And we are partners with organizations that, in my opinion, right, they get the notice, they could send it to their group per our agreement of which we're putting money into the
Yes.
organization to
Regardless
help
if it's
us.
their events or not.
Correct. I mean, that,
Exactly.
so I mean,
It's easy, that's what I'm saying.
there's
Right.
more to this.
There's a
I
notice that
think.
could be given. They could be doing that. I don't want them to get the impression, and I mentioned this at a board meeting, that we are not asking for your permission to do other events. We're talking about business owners need to be notified.
And I talked with Dana a little bit. I think they're already looking at moving it from 5 days to 10 days notice. There's some simple things we can do, as I said before, creating a website, how people know to sign up for it. I think we'll have to work with our partners to let their groups know, like just click the box. And every time we update, like we could create a website of downtown events. And as soon as we put an event in there, just like we do for land use, if you subscribe to that webpage, when we make a page amendment, it automatically generates an email to all the subscribers. So you could go on our website right now and pick, here's 5 things I'm interested in: city commission, planning commission, land use applications, public projects. And every time we update that page, you automatically get an email saying we've changed it and here's what's changed. I mean, there's some simple things we
Yeah,
can
and our
do.
partners could assist us in getting the word
I
out.
would hope.
Whoever the partners are. Not picking on anybody in particular.
Okay. So those were 2 things, that the tree review and the permitting, timing, Main Street, or events, I mean.
Event review.
Okay. Would you like me to kind of hit a couple of highlights on city projects, or just, are there specific questions about anything I've written here? Obviously, for Center Street, we've had a long conversation tonight about kind of what we're thinking there. So you kind of got 2 things going on, one with the property at Center Street and 2 at First Street, trying to get some of those changes made and some of the agreements we have for some of like our decant facility and whatnot.
When are we anticipating we're going to get an update from ODOT about the construction costs? It's in your report. I know. Is there any way we can,
It must be nice.
any pushing we can do? The only reason I
Within the
mentioned,
next 6 months.
The only-
I mean, literally,
Well, I
it is
mean, that's-
completely out of our control.
that's completely unacceptable, 6 months. I mean, we should have had some updates sooner than that. The reason I'm bringing it up is I was downtown at one of the crossings, and this freight guy, this is the loudest I've heard it since I've lived here. I mean, he laid on that horn. I mean, all the way from 10th to 12th. And I thought, normally Amtrak, it's just, it's a little, this was one continuous one till he got to 15th, and then he stopped. And I thought, it's based on the train driver, whoever it is, but that was loud.
And as I put in, it's not really a conversation for the commission, it's something I'll need to bring back to the Urban Renewal Agency, but as the owners, would Urban Renewal be willing to, consider donating rather than, going through the whole appraisal, negotiating a price, and getting paid for some right-of-way? We'll spend more.
If it would spend, moving
We'll spend more trying to figure out what it's cost than what it's probably worth.
I would agree.
But that's an urban renewal discussion. And Commissioner Smith, years and years ago, when we were trying to sell 10th and Main across from Dutch,
Yes.
and remember the property went across the tracks?
Yes, on the
Up
other
on the
side.
Singer Hill. So
Yes.
we went back and looked, and so after that had happened, we went ahead and did the lot line adjustments.
Yes.
And so the Singer Hill side of the tax lot back in the day has been dedicated. So the lot is actually representative
Separate now.
of what it is. Yeah, so that did happen.
I do remember that. It was, yeah.
Yeah, some oddities down there.
Yeah.
It's that Sidney Moss surveying with those ropes, they just stretch, depending on the weather, they stretch one way long, and then when it was summer, it shortened. There's some wacky survey points in this town, believe me, they are nuts.
Yep.
Does anybody have any committee reports that have updated since the last time we met? Because I think most of us are in summer and winter mode, and everybody's meetings have been canceled or postponed or
Just
changed.
We had a Clackamas Heritage
Today,
Partners meeting yesterday, and it was basically going over the budget, so it was a pretty simple, quick meeting.
Yeah, and they canceled DDMO. Thank
The
you.
DMMO, yeah, will be in
Somehow or another,
January.
I told James I'm still not, I didn't get the notice about the meeting.
January.
Which is weird.
And South Fork was,
Commissioner Smith is the rep.
Yes, but I'm the alternate,
Yeah.
and I asked them to add me to, so if I know he's not going, I will have the material, and I will be able to be prepared when I go, which happened once. He couldn't go, and I went, and I
yeah,
had to.
well, they recently had their mixer with hours I couldn't go,
I
which
know,
was
and I
fine.
told him,
But
no,
they
that wasn't
they
fine.
were having a conversation about moving their meeting times to a time that's during the day, which I
Yes.
don't think is a great idea,
No.
but they're going to have that conversation, I think, in January.
And maybe we both need to be there and say, no, that's not good.
South Fork was just, well,
value-
mostly evaluation.
Yeah.
We had
and
some other
update
topics.
on financing for the building.
Chemical
Chemical
feed building.
Yes,
So that was pretty,
yeah, short and sweet.
yeah.
And we don't meet, we might be meeting in January because there might be some contracts coming up that we have to approve for work to be done on the chemical feed building. But we do have a new employee, a construction manager to handle the construction. So, okay, well, if there's nothing else, we are adjourned.
I was just, tentatively, it's January 14th.
Yes,
The
yeah.
South
It's
Fork.
on our calendars, just to hold.
January 14th.
Okay,
Tree lighting was great.
yep, okay.